Welcome to another episode of the Duce Raymond Podcast. Today we have a special episode because it's just you and me hanging out, and I'm going to answer some of the most common questions I get as a business owner, a barbecue guy, a dad, someone that cares about their health, and so let's get into it. You know, one of the most common questions I get is, what kind of smoker should I buy? And my response to that is typically along the lines of, what are your goals and your interests? Because what type of smoker you buy depends on a lot, how much time you have and how you really think about barbecue. So are you looking for the easiest method of barbecue? It's just something that produces great food, but you want it to be as easy and as the least amount of research needed to really get into it. In that case, the pellet cooker is a no-brainer. Pellet cooker is awesome. Weber makes an awesome one. Traeger, Green Mountain Grills. There's a number of great pellet smokers on the market, and it is by far the easiest way to get yourself into barbecue. It's pretty much a set it and forget it sort of situation. Most of these smokers have timers, and there's a lot of technology set up on them. You pretty much have to load the pellets, set the temperature, and then put your meat on and walk away, and understanding some of the times and the temperatures that you're looking for the meat to hit. But aside from that, you don't have to worry about fire management, and it's really a pretty easy start to the barbecue world. But if you're interested in really understanding the art to barbecue and fire management and really want to get that authentic understanding and feel of barbecue, then you're looking at, there's many options, but the most traditional option is that offset smoker. This is probably, as opposed to the pellet smoker, the most amount of kind of learning that you're going to need if you're just getting into the smoking world, and the range of getting into barbecue from a dollar perspective is the widest. I mean, you could probably get $600, $700, $800 into a small Brinkman style offset smoker, but you could spend up to, the sky's the limit, $20,000 plus if you wanted to get fancy with an offset style smoker. So there's a lot to think about there. But if you want to if you're interested in learning barbecue and the art to it, and the science behind it and everything like that, then the offset smoker. Now there's everything in between that gives you some assistance, like the drum smoker. There's less involved there. The cost is, about $1,000. Once you learn it, you can get it dialed in, and you can cook slow and low, or you can cook hot and fast on it. Drum smoker is a great piece of equipment. I like to use it. And then if you have a Weber kettle, you can do smoking on there. Of course, obviously, you're going to grill with your Weber kettle, but if you learn how to set it up right, you can do some smoking on there. And that cost of entry is relatively low for getting started in barbecue. So it really depends on, how much you want to spend, and then how much time you want to spend really understanding the smoking process. If you wanted the easiest, then you're going pellet smoker. If you want to learn the art of barbecue, then you're going offset. And if you want something in between, you have the drum smoker. You can learn how to cook on a Weber Smoky Mountain. That's like Weber's first style of smoker they started. And then everything just down to regular Weber kettle you can learn how to smoke on, and it's very versatile because you can grill on it too. I will say this. I have the Weber Searwood. Weber provided for us to do some videos with, and that is a pellet smoker, but it does get hot enough to grill on it too. I've been using it at home a little bit, and I really enjoy working on that. So that's a grill and a smoker as well. So what's your favorite thing to cook? I get this question all the time, and it kind of makes me laugh because I like cooking so many different things. One of the responses I have to this question kind of catches people off guard a little bit is soup. That's something that I learned from my dad back in the days when I was just starting to learn how to cook. Soup is a great way to use up leftovers. It's so versatile. and it's just delicious. It's one of those comfort foods for me. I love creamy soup. I love French onion soup. I love chicken and wild rice soup. There's so many different things you can make. Recently, I've been making for me and my wife something like super healthy, just taking a bunch of root vegetables, celery, onion, carrots, and squash and bell peppers and everything we have in the refrigerator, and making a roasted vegetable soup with quinoa, and it's so good. There's so much flavor going on. It's so good for you. It's something I've been enjoying recently at our house. And then from a barbecue perspective, a lot of times I say ribs because that's what we've won the most awards with. I know that sounds a little vain, but I just love cooking ribs. It's kind of like the first thing I was introduced into barbecue, was kind of what put Sweet Baby Ray's on the map, and competition style ribs. I love cooking them. I love the process. I love the color when you flip them out of that foil. I've talked about that before. The taste, the tenderness, it's beautiful. And then it's hard to get past a perfectly cooked brisket too. And those burnt ends. So soup, ribs, and brisket. Those are my favorite things to cook. This is a question that I get for someone that doesn't really know me that well and just sees me online possibly, or just kind of got introduced. But what's the deal with Duce's Wild and Sweet Baby Ray's? So a lot of our channels are called Sweet Baby Ray's Catering, but then we're always using the Duce's Wild products. And, I can understand if you don't know. It seems kind of weird, and this is something from a marketing perspective we've struggled with for years, but the deal is, and I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but I think it's worth talking about. So my family, my dad and my uncle started Sweet Baby Ray's. My dad's the chef that created the sauce, and then my uncle with his business partner marketed the sauce, sold the sauce, and really grew the business. So they started back in the early 80s. My dad was a chef by training. My uncle asked my dad to come up with a barbecue sauce to enter into the Mike Ryko Rib Fest, and he did that using his own ideas. He talked to some of his other chef buddies, and he came up with the sauce to fit the name Sweet Baby Ray's. And this is a great part of the story, is my uncle got the name growing up on the west side of Chicago. They called my dad Ray because our last name is Raymond. They called his little brother Baby Ray. And my Uncle Dave would play basketball on the west side, and when he'd hit that baseline jump shot, they say, "That's Sweet Baby Ray." And so the sauce was actually made for the name Sweet Baby Ray's. And, the rest, I get goosebumps every time I tell that story, because as we tell the story, the rest we say is history. They really did amazing things with the sauce on early days back in the 80s and 90s, really grassroots. Didn't understand the business and really had to learn on the fly as they grew. Huge respect to Uncle Dave, my dad, Mike O'Brien, and everybody involved in the early days of Sweet Baby Ray's, because it's really the American dream story coming true. It blows my mind how they did that pre-internet, working with fax machines and knocking on doors. And it's just, like I said, it blows my mind. So a huge respect to those guys. And Sweet Baby Ray's today is the best-selling barbecue sauce in retail history. We don't own the sauce brand anymore, but gives us extreme pride. Something that, myself and my uncle talk about all the time is just, it's such an amazing thing to be associated with that brand. And if my dad was still around, I know he'd be looking down, just smiling, just seeing that brand grow. And Ken's, who bought Sweet Baby Ray's from our family, has just done nothing but great things with it. Their marketing. And what's funny to me is they run some of the in-store promotions the same as Uncle Dave set up 30 years ago, and still works today. And the price point really hasn't changed that much, which in today with all the inflation and everything is just mind-blowing. But they've really done amazing things. Couldn't be more proud to be associated with that brand. So when we sold Sweet Baby Ray's to Ken's Foods, we retained the rights to use the name for up to 4 restaurants in Illinois and Wisconsin. And as I talk about it, that's what we're doing today. We started the little restaurant in Wooddale, Illinois in 2005, and pretty much have slowly grown ever since. So we have the small restaurant. We have a catering business. At one point, we had up to 3 restaurants. COVID killed one. Bad partnership killed the other one, to make a long story short. But we still have the original, And then what we really focus on is the catering business. We've done really good growing the Sweet Baby Ray's brand. We also have a high-end catering brand called True Cuisine, where we do a ton of wedding and corporate events with. And then we have Duce's Wild. So Duce's Wild pretty much came out from the early days of the restaurant. We stumbled upon competition barbecue. Before then, didn't know anything about it. Learned about the KCBS. I basically fell in love with it from the get-go. We're competitive by nature, myself and my uncle, and when we found out about competitive barbecue, it was like, oh, a match made in heaven. And it was really interesting to me at the time when I was still drinking and partying and all that stuff, is like, okay, I get to cook barbecue, drink beer, be competitive, and win awards and prizes and money and everything. So it was just like, it was too good. It was amazing. We did that for about 10 years, ended up winning over 95 local, regional, and national awards. The last year we did it, we only competed 5 times, but ended up winning 2 RGCs. And in those, with teams in the country that only competed 5 times, we were the top team in the country that year. And I know if I put more time into it, I would have continued to have success. But as I continued to grow, my family continued to grow, it just became too time-consuming for me. So right now we're not doing any competitions. Still love it, still talk about it. And one day, as my family and my kids get a little bit older and they don't need me on the weekends as much, I could see myself getting back to it. But for right now, I'm focused on the business, growing the catering brand, and then Duce's Wild, the sauces and rubs brand. So that's where we're at today, is we have the Sweet Baby Ray's Catering and Restaurant, and we named our pages after that. And as we continue to grow, you'll see more and more about Duce's Wild. Duce's Wild is really just getting off the ground. We had a great year this year, kind of switched our website to a Shopify site, saw some increases there, and plan to get bigger into retail. But for right now, what we need to do to make that happen in a big way is partner with a co-packer to really get the price point aligned to what the retail market will bear. And that's the big next step. So Uncle Dave, thank God for him. He knows a ton about the retail space, so he's going to help me get in that. But 2025 is all about going to be growing online and seeing what we can do with the brand. We've had great success on the social media and the educational barbecue content, and we want to try to leverage that to kind of move that brand forward. So that's the deal with Sweet Baby Ray's and Duce's Wild. My family started Sweet Baby Ray's. I started Duce's Wild, and I'm still running with both of them right now. And a lot to come in the future for Duce's Wild, and Sweet Baby Ray's is we're going to use it as long as we have the rights to, because it's such a powerful brand. So another question, I get this question, and my uncle probably gets it more than I do, but people want to talk to me about it because they see me talking about different sauces and, of course, the affiliation with Sweet Baby Ray's. I have a sauce. How do I bring it to market? So, again, kind of like the smoker question, I have to go back to, like, what's your goals when you talk about bringing a sauce to market? Because if you want to be competitive in the retail space, it takes a lot. You need partnerships. You need an understanding of that market. You need a lot of information, and I am just getting started to understanding that. And that my family comes from the best-selling barbecue sauce in retail history, and there's a lot to understand there. And you need to get, it comes down to price, because what happens is you have to get it in the big stores. So you need relationships, you need brokers, you need a co-packer big enough to get your sauce cost down so that after everybody else takes a cut, there's still a little bit left over for you at the end of the day. And when you're competing with Sweet Baby Ray's and Famous Dave's and Kraft and those type of brands, it's really tough to produce enough volume to get your price low enough to be competitive on that scale. So if that's your goal, then you got a long road ahead of you, because it is tough, and you need a lot of relationships and things to go right. Everybody thinks they have the best product, which is fine. I think a good product is assumed in that space. You need to have a great product to even be in the conversation. But what I would suggest more is starting out small and marketing yourself online. But again, it depends on your goals. If you want to be a $10 million company, you're going to need some more scale. And scale comes from retail right now. And you can scale online for sure, but scale in the food space, a lot of that comes from the retail space. I'm planning to do both. I'm planning to scale online, and we're planning to get into retail, but the retail's a longer road, and it comes down to relationships pretty much, and how you position yourself in the market. And we want to be known as a premium brand, but you still need a reasonable price point for people to move in the retail space. If you're thinking about Jewel and Albertsons and Kroger and all those type of big sales, people buy the tickets. So you still need to put yourself on sale during Super Bowl, during 4th of July, during Memorial Day, during Labor Day, during the holidays. And you have to have your price point appropriate for people to want to move on your product. And a lot of times in the retail space, they talk about gaining trial and then keeping interest. So you need those sale prices to gain trial. People just say, let me try something different. And, maybe they saw something online, or maybe you ran a promotion in the local area, and whether it's print or online or something, some way they heard about your product. And then you put it on sale, and that might be enough to move them away from their usual. And then you got to continue running those promotions. So it's gain trial and then retain interest. So those are the two main factors in the retail space. But if you're just looking to do online, I think there's a lower cost to entry there, and you can get started. And that's a content game. I've talked about that before, where if you want to be successful online, it's about getting your name out there. It's everything Gary Vee talks about it's the attention economy and the creator economy, and you need to get out there enough to create awareness for your brand and gather attention on your brand. And that comes from, in my opinion, creating content that's either educational or entertaining or both. And that's something that we work on more on the educational side. If you want more specifics, you can always reach out to me at Duce Raymond on any of the platforms. Send me a DM. I'm pretty accessible. Duce@sbrevents.com is my email address. If you guys want to get a hold of me, look for me, find me, you can get a hold of me if you're a little creative. So this is another question that's pretty funny to me. How do you stay in shape being around all that good food all the time? I would tell you what, it's not easy. Especially for me. I come from a foodie family. Food is always huge. Any gatherings always revolve around food. And I grew up overweight. And my entire childhood was overweight and turned into alcoholic and drinking. And it all didn't mix well together for me, and ended up being close to 300 pounds for a portion of my life. And so I always have those tendencies to want to eat and overeat and things like that. So my battle with that has led me to going to the gym every single day, maybe taking 1 or 2 days a month off, maybe. Against a lot of trainers, and people say, oh, you need to rest, you need to recover. Well, it's better for my mental health to get there and do something, at least something. 4 or 5 days a week are pretty hard in the gym, and a couple days are just like cardio or stretching, go in the sauna, red light therapy, things like that. But 4 or 5 days a week, I'm hitting pretty hard with weights and then some light cardio or things like that. So that's my battle. I try to eat as healthy as possible, but I still have to go to the gym every day. So it's a balance between eating a little bit less than I want to and going to the gym. But I still taste the foods. Most of the time you see me eating on camera, that's most of the time that I'm eating that type of food. Off camera, I don't really eat that much of the barbecue, really rich food. Most of the time it's diet food for the most part, which is not too exciting. But then, you know what? I feel like then when I do have that food, it actually tastes even better, and it's more of an experience instead of having it all the time. So that's my battle with good food, and we've done podcasts about that. I plan to do more in the future. It's something that's very interesting to me, is the whole health and nutrition and fitness space. So something I'm passionate about as well, because outside of barbecue in business is health and fitness. So something we're going to be talking about more in 2025 for sure. What is the biggest mistake people make when they're cooking barbecue at home? So there's kind of two lines of thought here. Both of them involve time and giving yourself enough time. One is the cooking process takes time, and especially when you're talking about low and slow barbecue. And you always want to be holding rather than pushing. So whether you're cooking chicken, ribs, or even the longer cuts, brisket and pork, or anything like that, you want to give yourself enough time to get it done properly. Because what a lot of people do is they'll start running out of time, and then they'll crank up their temperature. And that really is not good for barbecue. If you crank up your temperature halfway or 3/4 of the way through, you're going to pull moisture out of your meat and dry out the outside as well. So it just doesn't turn out well, especially like when people are new into barbecue, and especially if they're reading their temperatures all the time, and you hit that stall at 170 degrees with brisket or pork, and it's there for an hour, 2 hours, and you're just freaking out. You crank up the temperature. It's not a good idea. You just have to ride it out. You want to stay, for the most part, people are cooking in that anywhere from 250 to 275 range for low and slow barbecue. Some people go as low as 225. I find that just takes too long, and I like that 250, 275 range, especially at the home, because tendency people do is open the smoker more often. When we're at the shop, like in the catering business, in the restaurant, you can set that thing at 225 because not one person opens that door overnight, and everything is so contained, and the Southern Prides that we use are just run so efficiently that you can get the same result. Your stuff will get tender in 12 hours, but if you're cooking at home at 225, it's going to take you longer. I guarantee it. I've witnessed it myself. It just takes longer because people look at it, they open the doors, they're spritzing it, they're messing around with it. The home smokers aren't as efficient as the industry smokers that we use. Yeah, so I always recommend 250 to 275 and give yourself enough time. Now, it even compounds on that is not enough people plan for their rest time to be long enough. So if you're cooking big cuts, especially pork and brisket, you want to rest at least 2 hours for those cuts. So you're looking at a 14 to 16 hour window where you should be cooking and resting for those big cuts. And then for like ribs and chicken and turkeys and things that are a little shorter cook time, you still want to let those rest for half an hour or so. In my opinion, just lets the meat relax, the juices kind of reabsorb. It's just a better product in the end. So give yourself enough time for the cooking process and for resting. That's the most common mistake, is people don't give themselves enough time. What inspired you to get into barbecue, and why is it such a big part of your life? Or how did it come such a big part of your life? I mean, I think it's kind of self-explanatory for me. I'm with the family history of Sweet Baby Ray's, and I was always intrigued by food growing up, and watching my dad and my uncle cook ribs on the huge Weber grill always excited me. At one point, right after high school, I thought, I'm not going to go in the food industry. My dad's always working on nights, weekends, and holidays. He's always grumpy. I got to find something else to do. That just doesn't seem like a good program to me. And went to traditional community college for a year, and I was like, that ain't happening. I'm not doing that for 4 years. That just wasn't me. So I actually moved out to Utah with some buddies and started working in restaurants because that's all I knew. That's what I had experience with. That's how knew I could get a job, and I did that, and I worked for a female chef out in Salt Lake, or Park City, Utah, just outside of Salt Lake, and really found my passion for food out there. Worked at a California cuisine restaurant, worked with fresh vegetables, went to the farmer's market. I had seafood flown in from Hawaii, and I worked the grill, so we cooked veal chops and hand-formed burgers and pork chops and fish on the grill, and just kind of like really found my passion out there. It was a lot of fun. Ended up living out there for about 9 months during the 2002 Winter Olympics. 9/11 happened. decided I shouldn't be this far away from my family. Moved back to Chicago I moved in with Uncle Dave, and actually went to Kendall College, started going to Kendall College then, and in Chicago. And anytime there was a report or special project or something due, I always did it that we had choice in kind of like forming what it was going to be about. I always did it around barbecue. I did a history of barbecue, different regions of barbecue, really, really started developing a understanding and a passion for barbecue at culinary school, traditional barbecue. Started cooking barbecue in the backyard at Uncle Dave's house. Some of the first rounds of pork shoulder were pretty rough and tough. But really started to understand it more, and it's kind of funny to think about it, like look back and think about it, because I remember as we were finishing up high school, we had this one chemistry teacher, and he had us write a letter to ourselves in 10 years. And he said, what are you going to be doing in 10 years? What are some of your goals and your ambitions? And I actually remember getting that letter back 10 years post-graduation, and it said that I wanted to open a restaurant with my dad or my uncle, a Sweet Baby Ray's restaurant. And it had happened, and we opened up the Sweet Baby Ray's restaurant in 2005, and really learned a lot and made so many mistakes in the early days. But I always liked the food industry. There was such a camaraderie there. I don't know, it's something about it. My wife always says you got born into it, or it chose you didn't choose it sort of situation. And I think there's some truth to that for sure, because not everybody can be in the hospitality industry. It's long hours. Typically the pay is not outstanding. And it has to, I like to think about it as you need a servant's heart to be in the hospitality industry. It has to make you happy to make other people happy. And that's really what we do, is provide a great experience. And we live to see that smile on the customers' faces. And that's what we do day in and day out. And it's the holiday season right now, so it's just crazy back there in the kitchen right now. And as soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm gonna jump back there and help the guys out, because I know it's just wild. But I like doing that. I like getting my hands dirty. I like jumping back and helping out. Generally, my job is to continue to push the vision forward and keep the Duce train going, as people like to say, because we have so much on our plate with the restaurant and growing the catering business, and now Duce is Wild. So it's a lot of balls in the air, and if I was back there all the time chopping onions, it wouldn't do it. Wouldn't move the ball forward like it has to be done. But having said that, like I said, I do like to get back there and do stuff once in a while, because it keeps me involved, gives me a relationship with the guys in the kitchen, and it's fun. I enjoy doing it. That's what I got into this industry for. I just can't do it all the time. Yeah, so that's why I'm passionate about barbecue. And I've really become more passionate about creating content online. I think it's a lot of fun. People get a lot of value out of it, I hope, I think. I know they do, because they tell me about it, and they leave comments, good, bad, and the ugly online. But it's all good. I think I'm providing some information to people. Just this week, it was a great story. So we posted for Thanksgiving a different way to do your turkey. So actually taking the breast meat off, taking everything off the carcass, deboning the breast, butterflying it, stuffing it with stuffing, and wrapping it with bacon and smoking that separate, and then keeping the legs and the wings, cooking those on the side, more traditional like smoke style. But why? Because breast meat is done at 165, and while technically you can eat the leg and thigh at 165, it's not necessarily tender. It's actually more tender and juicy at 185, because the connective tissue starts to break down at 185. And this guy in my neighborhood saw the video. He said, I'm going to give it a shot. He was texting with me a little bit, and I gave him some more tips. And he nailed it. He posted on Instagram, and his family loved it, and he thanked me. And that makes me happy that I was able to provide some sort of information for someone, and they were able to make that and impress their family. And those type of small stories, that type of stuff happens more often than not when we're producing fun creative content and people enjoy it, and then hopefully that kicks them back to maybe they'll come to the restaurant, or next time they need a catering event, they'll think about us. Next time they need some sauce or rubs, they'll go to Duce's Wild. So I think the old saying, the more you give, the more you get, and that's why we put out this content. It costs us a lot of money to produce this content. It's not free. Not just the cost of the meat either. It's the whole production of everything, the videographer, the editing, my time, but we're seeing the results from it, and it's something that I have really started enjoying a lot as part of my job, and we're going to continue doing that. What's the secret to making the perfect brisket? Well, there's a lot going on with brisket. Most of you guys, if you're still listening, you've cooked barbecue before, but brisket's actually two muscles. So one muscle is leaner and cooks a little faster, and one muscle's more fatty and it takes a little more to render out. So the flat part of the brisket and the point of the brisket, those are the two muscles. The more you trim it down to keep it as evenly as possible. My opinion on brisket is always changing, and I'm still learning as I go too. But like, if you trim it down and trim some of that point off and really kind of trim like the thinnest part of the flats off and kind of get it as even as possible, you're heading in the right direction there. Because if that point is just all sticking up so high and the flat's super thin, you're going to have some meat that's tough and some meat that's overcooked and dry. So if you can even it out a little bit more, you're going to have better luck starting off. Then it's your smoker, your fire management. The best case scenario for brisket is you're cooking at an even temperature long enough to get that thing tender without drying it out. So a moist cooking environment, I'd say if you're cooking on a pellet cooker, put a little water pan in there, get some moisture going. You're going to have consistent temperature as long as you don't run out of pellets. If you're cooking on a pellet cooker, keep that temperature consistent, keep that cooking environment a little bit moist, some humidity in there, and you should be good to go. Do you wrap or do you don't wrap? I found best results when I wrap. I like butcher paper. Foil works fine. If you don't have butcher paper, you can use foil. The only real difference is you get a little bit of breathing, if you will, from the butcher paper, so it kind of keeps your bark intact a little bit better. But if you're looking for that super moist anyways, then foil does just fine. All the barbecue influencers, all you see online right now is butcher paper, so I'm following that trend, but I think you get some hate if you throw the foil on there, but for the most part, you're going to get just fine results if you don't have butcher paper and you want to use foil. So typical is cooking that brisket till you hit that stall stage. Like, this is why they say take it to 175 and then wrap. Well, what wrapping does is kind of like insulates, keeps that heat all in there and kind of like pushes you out of that stall stage. So you're less at risk for drying out your brisket. Now, in the restaurant, the catering business, we don't wrap halfway through. We're not there. When it hits the stall is like 2 a.m, nobody's at the shop. It just cooks through. We wrap when it comes out. And I have to imagine a lot of barbecue places cook like that. Some of the more traditional Texas places, their guys get there at 2 a.m. to start their brisket, and they're like working kind of like a day out. So they do wrap when it hits that stall, put it back in the smoker, cook it to, I would imagine, 200, not over 200, because the way they do it is they'll take it out and they hold it for like 12 hours so it's ready for service the next day. But traditional for you at home, start with a high quality brisket. Get a choice or better, choice or prime. If you want to spend the money and get a Wagyu, then get the Wagyu. Trim it so it's as even as possible. Even cooking temperature. Wrap at 175. Cook to 200 or to 205. And then let it rest for 2 hours. This is going to give you the best set. And the seasoning, you can start with salt and pepper if you want to be super traditional. We have a nice Texas rub. There's so many different rubs out there that are great, but you have to find what you like. You're going to get more flavor on the rub and the seasoning and the sauce that you put on after it's cooked than the actual pre-rub. At the end of the day, you can't really taste that. You need to get some salt and pepper on there because that's your base flavor, at least salt and pepper when you're first starting out. But then when you come back through after it's sliced, a little salt or rub on it, that's what you're really going to taste besides the nice smokiness, juiciness of the meat. That's my simple breakdown for brisket. And you know what? The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And just like anything in life, is if you really want to get good at it, you have to do it a lot. So another thing, we cook a lot of like different style of barbecue, like fusing international flavor profiles with traditional cooking methods. So what's the balance between traditional and innovation? I mean, I think that if you're not going to innovate, then it's boring. Like, I can only cook, like, traditional pulled pork or traditional ribs, like, so much. Like, that's not exciting to me. If I showed you how to cook a pork shoulder just with barbecue rub, smoke it, pull it, put sweet baby rays on it, that's not that interesting to me. When you're first getting started out, the more basic, the better. But I love the thought of cooking Thai-style pulled pork. Or one of my favorite ones I think we did this year was the Greek pulled pork, where we put like a herb and lemon marinade, salt, pepper, garlic, smoked it, and then put it on a sesame seed bun with tzatziki sauce, tomato, and onion. And it was like the best gyro you've ever had. Like, it was so good. I'd love cooking that style of barbecue. I'd love Asian flavor profiles with smoked meat. There's so much you can do with it. So I feel like it's great to have the traditional salt, pepper brisket taste amazing. But how can we put a spin on it, do something a little different, add some of the gochujang sauce to things to make it a little spicy and unique? So I like both. I love the traditional, going to Texas and having a salt pepper brisket, and some of the best meat you'll have anywhere. I mean, it's great, but I like taking it and putting a different spin on it because it's fun, it's interesting, and what it blows my mind is on our pages, people get more excited over the super traditional sometimes than the more interesting, to me, international flavor profiles. But so we do a balance. I want to keep people's interest, but I also want to do what I'm interested in and keeps me motivated to keep on going. So we do a little bit of both. What's your favorite barbecue memory? There's so many over the years. I don't know what my favorite barbecue memory is. I mean, as a kid growing up, it's definitely the ribs cooked on the big Weber grill with my dad and my uncle. Specifically, I remember we would go up to Minocqua, Wisconsin every year, one vacation a year up there for a week, and my dad would cook ribs there was a whole group of families that went up to the same resort, the Minocqua Country Club, every year. And my dad, on the 4th of July, would cook ribs, and it's one of those things that I've really learned to love and appreciate, and he always made things special for people, especially on the 4th of July, and that's something that he really enjoyed doing, and that's something that I continue to do for our family. And it's a little tough to think about because he's not here right now, and I know that he would be so proud to see what's going on with the business now. And yeah, there's so many good memories because of the family time, the cooking for people, and then the smell of the grill and the way the ribs tasted and all that stuff kind of comes rushing back. Let's go with that as a favorite barbecue memory. Cooking ribs with my dad in Minocqua for the 4th of July for friends and family. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed the content, and stay tuned for more.